Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Dr. Jasmine Lee, one of the music coordinators serving Cedar Lane alongside my colleague, Jenny Lynn Moyer. If you're new with us this morning, please let us know in the live chat. Whether you are joining us today for the first time or you've been with us for a lifetime, you are welcome here. Whoever you are, and whomever you love, you are welcome here. Wherever you are joining us from, and however you arrived at our worship time together, you are welcome here. Whatever your beliefs, gender identity and expression, immigration status, or political views, you are welcome here. Thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to worship with us today. We invite you to fill out the newcomer form included in the chat. If you have been attending for a while and are interested in becoming a member of this religious community, please reach out to Nicole Causey, our membership coordinator. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of the ministry team. They are available in the chat today to support you. We are so excited to share that our second concert in this year's Cedar Lane concert series will take place on Sunday, December 13th at 4 p.m. This performance will feature the Army Chorus, who is putting together some wonderful holiday music videos exclusively for Cedar Lane. A Q&A will follow. It will be shorter than our other concerts, so please join us if you are able. I want to thank everyone who joined us for the Christmas Youth concert in October and those who donated to concerts at Cedar Lane. We wouldn't be able to continue the series without your generous support. We aren't able to ask for donations during the Army Chorus concert, but if you feel moved, please give at cedarlane.org/give. As we enter this worship experience of reflection and remembrance, of joys and sorrows, of generosity and compassion, let us be mindful of the land where our beloved church is situated. Let us be mindful of the Piscataway Nacotchtank who have walked these lands for 1,000 years and more. Let us remember those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward. Let us remember all who have gone before, whose vision and labor helped create and sustain this religious community. In this spirit we gather, in this spirit we begin. Let us greet and welcome each other in the chat.
Unitarian Universalism draws from many theological sources, including wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life.
This third UU source contains within itself an amazing variety of contributions from the world's religions, which enrich our faith and expand our vision.
Today's service celebrates Bodhi Day, a defining event in the life of the historical Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, when he experienced enlightenment. It is observed at this time of year by traditional Zen and Pure Land Buddhist schools of China, Korea, Japan, and Vietnam.
Bodhi Day serves as a reminder amid all the hustle and bustle of the season to pause, to center down and reconnect with inner wisdom, peace, and compassion that is available to all of us, and to recognize our relation to the whole.
Namo tas bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhas. Namo tas bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhas. Namo tas bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhas.
I pay homage to the Blessed One, the Perfected One, the fully enlightened one.
Suppatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Nyapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Samichatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Yadidam chattari purisayugani atta purasapuggala yesa bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dhakkineyo anjali karaniyo anuttaram punyaketam lokasatti.
The Sangha of the Gracious One's disciples are good in their practice, are upright in their practice, are systematic in their practice, are correct in their practice. And that is to say, the Sangha of the Gracious One's disciples are worthy of offerings, of hospitality, of gifts, and of reverential salutation, the unsurpassed field of merit for the world.
Buddham sharanam gacchami, sangham sharanam gacchami, dhammam sharanam gacchami.
I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. Good morning. I am Stephanie Williams, the worship associate for today's service. My pronouns are she, her, and I am lighting my chalice in College Park, Maryland. As I read our chalice lighting words, I invite you to share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. In the holy quiet of this hour, may we let go of our anxieties, our fears, our anger, our self-doubts, our regrets, our petty grievances, and our distractions. Let the flame of our chalice burn them from our hearts and minds, and light our way to awakening and compassion within ourselves, within each other, and in the world.
There is no
Under the Bodhi tree, the story of the Buddha. Long, long ago, in a faraway place called Kapilavastu in present-day Nepal, there lived a king named Suddhodana and a queen named Maya. One day, the queen was resting in her palace when she had a dream about a white elephant carrying a white lotus entering her womb. Soon, a baby was born to the queen. He was named Siddhartha Gautama. A group of wise people predicted that he would grow up to be either a great emperor or become a great spiritual leader. King Suddhodana wanted Prince Siddhartha to become a king and conquer the world. The king made sure the prince led a sheltered and luxurious life within the palace walls and had no contact with the outside world. Eventually, the prince married a beautiful princess named Yashodhara, and they had a son, Rahula. Siddhartha was 29. Siddhartha loved his wife and his son, and they had a wonderful life together. But Siddhartha felt restless inside and wanted to know what was outside the palace. So one day he persuaded his father to agree to a day outside the walls of the palace. Recalling the prophecy at his son's birth, the king made sure that there was no one who was poor, sick, elderly, or suffering along the prince's designated route. Yet, despite all precautions, as Siddhartha rode through the kingdom with his charioteer Chenna, he saw 4 sights which stunned him deeply. First, he saw a very old person, tottering, bent over, and frail. Next, he saw a person grievously ill, cared for by family. Then, he saw a dead body. Each time, he asked his charioteer, "To whom do these things happen?" And each time, Chenna replied, "To everyone, my prince." On his way home, Siddhartha encountered a 4th sight, a monk seated by the roadside with a begging bowl, deep in meditation. This was something that touched his heart the most. Siddhartha rode home, deep in thought. Siddhartha spent the next few days thinking about what he saw on his journey outside the palace. He was determined to understand the nature of suffering. And so one day he decided to leave his palace life. And that night he left his wife and son while they were sleeping and set out with his charioteer to the forest to gain more understanding and the meaning behind life and the reason for suffering. At the edge of the city, he took off his princely robes, cut his hair, and sent his charioteer Chenna back to the palace with his chariot. And then for the next 6 years, Siddhartha wandered in the forest, pushing his body to the extreme, including eating only 1 grain of rice a day, standing on 1 foot, sleeping on nails, and meditating all day. However, he discovered that with his body so worn down, he could not meditate well. He realized that these extreme practices were just another form of self-attachment. So on a beautiful day, Siddhartha sat quietly under a tree and looked within himself. At that moment, a village maiden appeared carrying a bowl of rice and said, "Here, eat." And Siddhartha accepted the rice. It was his decision towards life. Now he knew what he must do. To find the answers to this question, he needed to look within and trust himself. It is said that this is when he discovered the middle path for achieving liberation of body and mind. Near the city of Gaya, he found a peaceful spot under a sacred fig tree, where he sat down to meditate with a solemn vow. Come what may, let my body rot, let my bones be reduced to ashes. I will not get up from here until I have found the way beyond decay and death. Thus determined, Siddhartha passed into deep meditation. When the senses close down and concentration flows undisturbed by awareness of the outside world. The chronicles say that Mara, the lord of desire, came to challenge him. But Siddhartha resisted every temptation that Mara had to offer. He meditated until he found the answers to his questions. His awareness expanded. One day he opened his eyes and said, I am awake. Siddhartha had become the Buddha, the enlightened one. After awakening to enlightenment, the Buddha gathered his 5 former disciples to preach his first sermon. This was the first time he spoke about the 4 noble truths and the path of the middle way. The 4 noble truths, he said, are the fact of suffering, that suffering has an identifiable cause, which is our attachment, and that we have the ability to end this cause. And finally, the ways to end the cause of our suffering is by following an 8-fold path, which is right understanding, right purpose, right speech, right conduct, right work, right effort, right attention, and right meditation. The Buddha soon started teaching in the deer park near Sarnath. Thousands came to hear him and became his disciples too. For decades, the Buddha walked barefoot in his robes, teaching and gathering new disciples everywhere he went, all over the land. He influenced millions of lives by his teachings and inspired one of the greatest religions of the world, Buddhism.
An offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it's through financial pledges that we build our budget and fund our mission and ministries of worship and religious education, pastoral care, and social justice. We pay our staff and professional religious leaders and finance the comfort and beauty of our buildings and our grounds. We pass the plate during our worship service to make a community expression of thanks for the blessing of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of our week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday mornings. This week, we're giving to support Beacon House. Beacon House provides crucial tutoring and after-school activities and services in the Edgewood neighborhood of Northwest DC. The annual toy drive for Beacon House is also happening this weekend and next weekend. You can drop off an unwrapped gift at Cedar Lane as a drive-through process between 2 and 4, but they need our financial support too. Please watch this short video from Beacon House to learn a little bit more.
Hi, my name is Kate. I'm the Education Director at Beacon House. We're so grateful to you for your support of our holiday toy drive this year. Our families are low income and have been hit especially hard by the pandemic this year. So the only gift that they may receive might come from Beacon House. Any way that you could support us, we would appreciate. Now, meet some of our students.
Hi, my name is Regine. I'm 13 years old, and I like that I get presents on Christmas.
My name is Olivia. I'm 9 years old. What I like about Christmas is because I'm able to spend time with family. And also, I really like the Beacon House toy drive. I still have my dragon stuffed animal. Oh, and other toys from years before. It's really fun.
My name is Daniel. My age is 9. What I like about Christmas, I spend with my family and I get gifts. And what I like about Beacon House Toy Drive is that I also get gifts, and sometimes they give something good, like good things, and it kind of makes me happy.
My name is Zubair Sultan, and my age is 6. And I like Eid, and I celebrate Eid.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, hope you enjoyed meeting our students here at Beacon House. My name is Natalie Page, the front desk receptionist. We thank you in advance for helping our students have a great holiday.
As you can see, Beacon House continues to offer crucial support in the Edgewood area, and I hope that you'll support them today financially through our Share the Plate, and also consider dropping off an unwrapped gift either this Sunday or next Sunday between 2 and 4. If you'd like to give today, I want to let you know that there's many ways. You can give by the electronic means of our modern times by using text, online giving, PayPal, or simply scan the QR code on your screen. And of course, you're always welcome to mail a check to the church. Today's offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you for your generosity.
They who led me from door to door.
to expand the caring ministry of this congregation. Together, we recognize the cycles of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is the heart of this religious community. Our hearts are with those whose primary spiritual practice is parenting. We hold in our circle of caring those who live with grief or chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental illness or addictions. Those who care for family members in ill health, those experiencing job loss and financial insecurity. We also celebrate as a community, and today let us celebrate with Vicky and Paul Strella on the birth of their third grandson. Brian and his wife Laura welcomed their newest child, Grant Ransom Fitzgerald. He joins brothers Henry and Forrest. All three boys are under 3 years old. What a joy and a blessing. And we also celebrate with Cedar Lane's intern minister, Dana Edwards, who has reached a milestone. On Friday, she had her interview with the Ministerial Fellowship Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Association and was welcomed into preliminary fellowship. Please congratulate Dana when you connect with her. And we also hold our sorrows and our concerns together as a community. And today I invite you to please hold in your hearts Rick Lohmeyer and Chris Graham. Rick is streaming in from Walter Reed today as he recovers from surgery. We invite you to hold him in your prayers through his recovery, and you're invited to send cards. Details are in the e-news. And our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and impacted by violence and calamities in our nation and the world. It was a devastating fire on Saturday that severely damaged the historic Middle Collegiate Church, the oldest Protestant church to have continuous service in history. It's located in the East Village in New York City. So we hold these joys and these sorrows in our hearts and the many other hurts, the sadness, the grief that we are all holding as we navigate this time, as we think of all those who are living with or caring for someone with COVID or worrying for someone who's on the front lines or is on the front lines in caring themselves. May we hold them in our hearts, and may that which we hold wholly reveal itself in answered prayers and restored hearts. I invite you now to enter a time of silence where those who are mourning a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss are invited to rise in body or spirit and or to share your loved one's name in the chat in mourning and in memory. Let us enter the silence together.
May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole.
Hi, my name is Sheila Maher, and I've practiced and taught Buddhism for over 20 years. In recognition of Bodhi Day, when we're celebrating Buddha's enlightenment, it makes sense to think about the Buddha's teaching on compassion, because the teachings on compassion are central to the Buddhist philosophy. The Buddhist conception of compassion isn't limited to a sense of sympathy or empathy for the suffering of others. Instead, empathy is coupled with an active determination to do something to alleviate the suffering. In fact, Buddhists focus on acting to eliminate the suffering of all beings, which, when you think of it, is a rather tall order. And as Buddhists strive for their own enlightenment, they do so that they can learn the best way to relieve suffering. So in celebration of Bodhi Day, let's do a reflection on compassion. Start by relaxing and sitting comfortably in your chair. You may choose to keep your eyes open or closed, whichever will help you visualize better. Now bring to mind a close friend, family member or colleague, someone that you care about. Imagine that this person has made a mistake or failed in some way. Maybe they forgot to pick someone up at the airport. In any case, they really messed up and they're suffering. Bring the situation clearly to mind, envisioning your person in the situation. Now, as you focus on your visualization of your friend, can you feel the person's sorrow or disappointment at their failure? How would you treat someone who is suffering in a situation like this? What would you do? And what tone of voice would you use? Think about the specific words you would use to help them in this situation. How would you soothe them to reduce their suffering? Now let go of that visualization, but keep your eyes closed if you've had them closed. We're going to bring to mind a different situation. In this case, bring to mind a time when you have failed or made a mistake. You messed up. How would you react to your own failure? Would you scold yourself? Or would you dwell on your failure over and over? What words would you use in this case, if it was your failure? And what happens to your own sense of self in case of this failure? Research has shown that 78% of people are significantly more compassionate to others than they are to themselves. Can you see yourself in that situation? Are you more compassionate to others than yourself? We often berate ourselves and dwell and dwell and dwell on our failures. We might intend that this is motivating to do better in the future, but instead, screaming at yourself or dwelling on your mistakes can be self-destructive because it activates a very unhealthy stress response. In fact, we can all benefit from increasing our own self-compassion. And Buddha felt it's important to develop compassion for ourselves first in trying to develop compassion for others. The end of the year and the holidays is a great time to think about increasing your own self-compassion. How about making it a New Year's resolution? You can train yourself with 3 simple steps. First, awareness. As soon as that you recognize that you're berating yourself or scolding yourself or dwelling on your mistakes, try to reduce that old behavior or stop it altogether. Second, recognize our shared humanity. We're not the only ones who make mistakes and then cause ourselves to suffer for it. Everyone has failed at some point in their lives. We are not alone. Third, be kind to yourself when you make a mistake. If you're self-critical and ask yourself if you would treat a friend as you're treating yourself now, then you know that you need to change your behavior toward yourself. Shift your response from harsh words and tones to soothing words and encouragement. Use loving kindness statements like, "May I be happy, may I be well, may I be forgiven for whatever it is I did." As you are making this shift to more healthy responses, please avoid the dreaded double whammy. That is, don't criticize yourself for having had a critical response. Don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up. Be kind and soothing to yourself as a step forward in developing your self-compassion. Good luck in the new year. May you experience the benefit of increased self-compassion. Thanks.
May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole.
For that beautiful reflection about self-compassion, and Jenny Lynn and Kevin for the musical gift of "May You Be Well and Filled with Loving Kindness." One of the greatest blessings in my life was meeting and spending a whole afternoon with His Holiness the Dalai Lama many years ago on September 4th, 2010, at the International Association for Religious Freedom Conference in Kochi, India. The Dalai Lama was the keynote speaker at the conference. A few hours before the opening ceremony, my wife Lolita and I, along with a small group of people, were invited to a private audience with the Dalai Lama at his hotel. And we showed up and we waited in the lobby. And we waited and waited. The hotel lobby was jam-packed with people. Easily, there were about 400 people there. And when His Holiness finally arrived, after being delayed for around 3 hours at the airport by throngs of people who were waiting to catch a glimpse of him and meet him, we were invited to form a line to meet him one at a time. And when it was my turn, I bowed to the Dalai Lama and offered him this silk scarf, which he then blessed and placed on my shoulders. And then he grabbed my arms and pulled me close to him. Our foreheads touched, and he looked me in the eye, and he said, "I'm so glad to meet you, and I look forward to seeing you again." Now, in that moment, the whole world disappeared. There was no one there except His Holiness and I. And I felt held in the embrace of this radiant love that would not let me go. And from deep within, I felt this sense of joy and peace welling up from within. It was an incredible experience. It still gives me goosebumps when I think about that day. And the other thing that has stayed with me all these years is the Dalai Lama's laughter, which I got to experience quite a few times during the course of the time that we spent with him. Now, there is something about the Dalai Lama's deep belly laugh that exudes unadulterated joy. It begins as a giggle, and then it builds and builds. And then finally, it is this full laugh that is emanating from his entire body. And you can just see that his body, mind, and spirit are completely in sync. It's just a beautiful experience. I'm reminded of one instance when, during the Q&A that I was facilitating with the audience, a person stood up and asked a rather long-winded question for almost 5 minutes, at the end of which His Holiness looked at me and he said, "Do you understand?" And I said, "No, Your Holiness." And so the Dalai Lama turned toward the man and said, "He doesn't understand. I don't understand. The people don't understand. Next question." And then he proceeded to laugh. Now, the Dalai Lama has plenty of reason not to laugh. This is someone who lost his country and has lived in exile his entire adult life. Someone who bears the burden of continuing the Tibetan traditions and spiritual teachings. And someone who contends on a daily basis the ongoing oppression and repression of the Tibetan people by the Chinese government. But in the face of all this, the Dalai Lama speaks and acts for justice, equity, and peace. And he laughs. In his words and actions, we can see how deeply and faithfully he stays true to his Buddhist principles. And in his laughter, we can see how he's able to let go and how deeply he embraces serenity and embodies compassion. Now, when we look at the Dalai Lama, we see a person who, in the midst of our world's pain and suffering, embraces the whole of life, the whole cloth. We see a person who weeps over the world's suffering and loss, and then a minute later, laughs that deep belly laugh. When we look at the Dalai Lama, we see hints of the Buddha's own life. The Dalai Lama was forced to leave Tibet when he was 24 to pursue truth and peace in other lands. Prince Siddhartha left the familiarity and the luxury of his palace when he was 29 to seek truth and to understand suffering and how to eliminate suffering. Siddhartha's departure became the Dalai Lama's exile. The Buddha's life is an example of the path toward awakening. So is the Dalai Lama's. But again, as with the Buddhas, the point is not that the Dalai Lama is enlightened or at least taken great strides toward enlightenment. The point is that you and I could do so too, right here, right now, in the concrete reality of the tears and laughter, of the joys and sorrows of our lives. Now, if you're thinking that the Dalai Lama is able to do this because he is somehow endowed with magical or supernatural powers, he will insist that he doesn't. If I did, he writes in a recent article in Time magazine, I would not feel pain in my legs or a sore throat. We're all the same human beings, he says, and we experience the same fears, the same hopes, the same uncertainties. But what he does have is the ability to stay awakened and lead a compassion-filled life, which is what Bodhi Day represents and asks us to commit to. Awakening and the work of compassion. They're also at the heart of the Buddhist path. Both are vital and both are connected. Awakening begins with seeing the world as it is. It begins with embracing our mind and heart, all the beautiful and terrible things that happen to all of us in this world. An individual awakening is also the source of compassion. And compassion springs from the Buddhist understanding that all life is interconnected and interdependent. And if we realize in our heart this essential life truth, we will understand that everyone and everything are related to us. And if we look upon the suffering of one of our loved ones with this understanding in our heart, we will feel compassion. So compassion is looking at the suffering of another being and realizing that that being is our relative. It is understanding that another's suffering is also, in some sense, our own suffering. This awareness of interdependence, the Dalai Lama says, leads to universal responsibility. Now, compassion also acknowledges our vulnerability, and it brings out our strengths so that we can be a bridge, a lamp, a source of healing to the hearts of others and ourselves, and for so many who are sick or stuck. And compassion is born out of looking with an open heart at the world's suffering. The hidden treasure in suffering, sorrows, and pains of the world, Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield writes, is compassion itself. So in order to understand compassion, it is important to realize that compassion is not merely a feeling. Now, it could become easily superficial and sentimentalized if it were just a feeling, which is what we see all too often in our culture with compassion's identical twin, love. But there truly is nothing sentimental or superficial about either love or compassion. They both begin as a feeling and a thought, but to be real, they must also then be translated into words and acts of loving kindness. So action is an integral part of the path and the work of compassion. Now, it is quite easy to be compassionate and loving when life is good and towards those we love. But it is not so easy when circumstances are hard or when we have to show compassion towards those we don't like. Now, one of the biggest challenges that His Holiness has had to contend with is showing compassion towards his Chinese oppressors, recognizing the humanity in them, but holding them accountable for their actions, which is why he never dehumanizes them or calls them out as being wholly evil. And he still invites them in to dialogue, while at the same time calling them out for the actions that they sometimes engage in that in turn causes suffering and death. So the Dalai Lama embodies the central Buddhist path, which is waking up and then living with compassion for all beings. It is how Siddhartha Gautama, whom we call the Buddha, lived. It is how the Bodhisattvas live. They become awake, but rather than depart the wheel of life for the release of nirvana, they stick around for a while to help other beings get further on their paths. So where does one start on this path of compassion? As Sheila explained so beautifully in her reflection, we start with ourselves. The Buddha put it quite simply. You can search the whole tenfold universe and not find a single being more worthy of love and compassion than the one seated right here, yourself. And then we extend it to our loved ones, our friends, and then to those we do not even know. And then we extend compassion to what the Dalai Lama calls our apparent enemies. And then we extend compassion to all the non-human beings our life impacts, other animals and the trees and the rocks and the air and the waters. We see the whole great web of life and feel compassion for this great whole. Now, this is what the Buddha did. This is what the Dalai Lama does. This is what you and I can do if we are truly awake. The world awaits, needs our compassionate hearts. So let us join in this great task together. I close with a blessing from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Let us cultivate boundless goodwill. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none in anger or ill will wish another harm. Even as a mother watches over her child, so with boundless mind should one cherish all living beings, radiating friendliness over the whole world, above, below, and all around, without limit. May it be so.
May we be filled with loving kindness.
I'm grateful to all the participants in today's service. Sheila Maher, my colleague Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, and our worship associate Stephanie Williams. Our musicians, Director of Music Emeritus Dr. Henry Segrishi, Dr. Jasmine Lee, and the Cedar Lane Quartet. I'm also grateful to our audiovisual and visual arts team, Don Woodruff, Michael McCrickard, Mike Morse, Barb Thompson, Todd Chernikoff, and Rebecca Nachtrieb for the beautiful in-gathering slides. Thanks to our pastoral volunteers and membership staff who have been active throughout the service in the live chat. Friends, join us after the service for a virtual coffee hour. Look for the Zoom link in the chat. It's an opportunity for us to get together, get to know one another, and have some deepening conversations. We look forward to seeing you there. And join us next Sunday at 11 a.m. with the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin for a celebration of resilience, hope, and light as your questions about navigating this holiday season are answered and grounded in hope. We close our time together with an ancient Pali blessing, Anumodana. Sabbitiyo vivajjantu, sabbarogo vinassatu, mate bhavatvantarayo, sukhi dighayuko bhava, abhivadana silisa, Nityam Buddhapachayino Chattaro Dhamma Vadanti Ayuvanno Sukham Bhalam Bhavatu Sabba Mangalam Rakkantu Sabba Devata Sabba Buddhanubhavena Sada Satti Bhavantu Te Bhavatu sabba mangalam, rakkantu sabba devata, sabba dhammanubhavena, sada satti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalam, rakkantu sabba devata, sabba sanghanubhavena, sada satti bhavantu te. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. May all distresses be averted. May every disease be destroyed. May there be no dangers for you. May you be happy and live long. For one of respectful nature who constantly honors the worthy, 4 qualities increase: long life, beauty, happiness, and strength. May there be every blessing. May the divine protect you. Through the power of all the Buddhas, may you always be well. Through the power of all the Dhammas, may you always be well. Through the power of all the Sangha, may you always be well. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. May it be so.